The attack in the dark. The night was heavy and silent, broken only by the distant hum of strange machines. The battlefield was not of Earth, but of a cold, alien world where shadows moved like living things. The ground was broken, filled with sharp black stones that cut into boots and flesh. Smoke from fallen ships still rose into the dark sky, and the smell of burned metal mixed with blood. In the middle of this wasteland walked a lone human soldier, his uniform torn, his weapon almost empty. He had been separated from his unit hours ago, hunted by shapes that moved faster than his eyes could follow. Every breath felt heavy. Every step reminded him that he was far from safety. But he kept moving, because humans were built to keep moving even when everything said stop. From the shadows, something watched him. A pair of glowing eyes, cold and sharp like knives in the dark. The queen of the enemy species, a tall creature with a body built for speed and power, followed his every step. Her claws were long and shining, her skin a deep shade that almost blended into the night. She had fought many humans before, but this one seemed different. He was not running. He was not begging for life. He walked as if he carried something heavier than fear. The queen's anger grew. This human had no right to walk with such calmness on her land. She dropped from the rocks above with a sound like thunder, landing in front of him. Dust flew, stones cracked, and her claws flashed in the dim light. The soldier froze for a moment, staring at the creature who was larger, stronger, and faster than him. But instead of raising his weapon, he simply breathed and whispered, "So, it's you." The queen snarled, her voice like broken glass scraping against stone. "You should kneel, human. Your kind dies here." But the soldier did not kneel. He stood, though his body was weak, and his eyes held a strange softness. It made the queen furious. With a roar, she slashed forward, her claws cutting through the air. The blow struck his back as he turned, tearing deep lines into his flesh. Blood splashed onto the black stones, glowing faintly under the alien moon. He fell to his knees, his breath sharp, pain flooding every part of him. The queen expected him to scream, to beg, to curse her name. But he only looked over his shoulder at her, his face pale, but his eyes calm. He whispered again, voice almost too soft to hear, "If this is the end, then let it be." The queen froze for a moment. Something in his tone unsettled her. Humans were supposed to fight or cry when death touched them. But this one accepted it, as if death was not her victory, but simply a door he had already seen. Her claws dripped with his blood, warm and strange against her skin. She stepped closer, her shadow covering him. She wanted to finish it, to tear out his life and move on. Yet something in the air felt different. The smell of his blood was sharp, but not like other humans she had killed. It carried a heat, a pulse, almost alive in a way that made her own body react. Her chest tightened, her breath caught for a moment. She did not understand why, but she felt it. The soldier coughed, blood staining his lips. His hand pressed weakly to the ground, his other hand still holding onto his broken weapon, though he had no strength to raise it. And still, his gaze did not show fear. It showed something else, a quiet patience, as if he was waiting not for death, but for her to understand something. The queen snarled again to shake off the strange feeling. "You bleed, human, and soon you will die. Nothing can save you." But he whispered back, his voice weaker now, "Maybe nothing can save me, but maybe my blood can save you." Her eyes narrowed. What kind of madness was this? Humans spoke in riddles, but his words carried a weight that made her pause. She should have ended him right there, but instead she stood still, her claws trembling slightly. Around them, the night grew colder. The ruins whispered with the wind, carrying the sounds of far-off battles. But in that moment, the world felt small, just a human on his knees bleeding, and the alien queen towering over him with claws still dripping. Something had begun, though neither of them could yet understand what it meant. The soldier fell forward, his blood soaking the stones, his body weak. The queen bent low, her claws still wet with his life. And for the first time in many battles, she hesitated. Her breath slowed, her eyes fixed on him, and a strange thought crossed her mind. Maybe she had not wounded him. Maybe he had wounded her instead. The night held its silence again, broken only by the sound of blood dripping slowly onto the ground. The attack had begun, but the true story had just opened. The poison spreads. The queen stood over the fallen human, her claws still shining with his blood. For a moment, she felt strong, as if the strike had ended yet another enemy. But then, deep inside her chest, a slow fire began to burn. It was not the fire of victory, it was something else, something wrong. She stepped back, her breathing heavy. Her claws trembled, though no fear had ever touched her before. The battlefield was silent except for the soft drip of blood on the black stones. Her body, once powerful and certain, now felt unsteady. A sudden weakness spread through her arms, through her veins. Her vision blurred for a moment, and her heart raced with confusion. She thought at first it was rage, the heat of battle. But this was different. It crawled inside her like a dark shadow, moving fast. The poison from the battlefield had found its way into her. It had been there, hidden, since the last clash of armies. A weapon left behind by humans, a silent killer. And now it woke inside her blood. She gritted her teeth and forced herself to stand tall. Her pride would not allow her to stumble before a dying human. Yet her legs shook, and her claws no longer felt like weapons of power. Instead, they felt heavy, as if the weight of her own body was turning against her. The human lay on the stones, his breath weak, his blood pooling beneath him. He had no strength left to fight, no weapon to raise. Yet as she looked at him, she realized something strange. The fire inside her chest seemed to shift whenever the smell of his blood reached her. It slowed for just a moment. It did not vanish, but it paused like a storm held back by a single wall. Her eyes widened. It cannot be. Her enemy's blood, this weak, fragile creature's blood, was fighting against the poison inside her. It was impossible, and yet she felt it with every shallow breath. The human's eyes opened slightly, dull from pain, but still steady. He looked at her through the haze of blood and whispered, "You feel it, don't you?" His voice was faint, but his words carried weight. She wanted to deny it, to strike him again, to silence his human riddles. But the truth was already crawling inside her veins, undeniable. Her chest tightened again, but the moment a drop of his blood touched her wound, the fire dulled. It was not healing, no, but it was slowing the poison's spread. And slowing meant life, at least for a little longer. The queen growled, furious. She hated this feeling of need. She hated that her survival, her strength, might depend on a creature she was sworn to kill. She crouched low, her eyes sharp, her voice filled with anger. "What are you? Human, what have you done to me?" The soldier coughed, his lips stained red, and gave a weak smile. "I did nothing, it's just blood, human blood. Maybe it was made for moments like this." Her pride screamed at her to end him now, to slice his throat and prove that her kind needed nothing from his kind. But her body betrayed her. Her hands shook, her heart raced, her breath caught in her throat. Without his blood, the poison would spread faster, and she would die before dawn. She knew it, even if she wished to deny it. The wind howled across the ruins, carrying ash and dust. The queen stood in silence, her mind torn between hatred and survival. The soldier's words echoed in her ears. "Maybe my blood can save you." She had thought it madness before, but now, standing above him, trembling with poison burning inside her, she knew he had spoken truth. Her people would call it weakness, a shame that could never be forgiven. But what was pride against death? What was hatred if it ended in nothing but silence? The queen snarled and grabbed the human by his torn uniform, lifting him with rough strength. His body was limp, his breath shallow, yet he did not resist. She dragged him away from the open stones, away from the eyes of the battlefield. Her claws left streaks of his blood across the ground as she moved. And with every step, her body screamed, yet also steadied. The poison spread, but the blood slowed it, enough to give her hope. For the first time in many battles, the queen felt something new. It was not victory, not pride, not rage. It was fear. Fear that her life was tied to the fragile body of a human she had wounded. Fear that without him, her story would end in silence and ash. As the night stretched long and cold, the queen looked down at the soldier she carried. She hated him, she needed him, and she could not yet decide which was stronger. But one truth stood clear. Her blood alone was no longer enough. His blood had become part of her fight, and the war inside her had only just begun. The strange reaction. The ruins were silent, but inside the queen's body a storm raged. The poison crawled through her veins like fire, but each time his blood touched her skin, the flames slowed. It did not heal her, no, but it held the poison back as if his blood carried shield. She could not explain it, and that made her furious. The human lay against a wall of broken stone, weak but still alive. His eyes were half closed, yet they followed her every movement. Even in pain, he seemed calm, as if he already understood what was happening. That calmness unsettled her more than the poison itself. She crouched near him, her claws still stained red. She hated the thought that her strength was linked to this fragile creature. Yet as her body shivered with the slow spread of poison, she knew it was true. Her people had fought humans for years, calling them weak, calling them simple. But now his weakness had turned into her survival. She pressed a claw against the cut on her arm, watching his blood mix with her own. At first she thought it was madness, but then she saw it. The poison inside her veins pulled back, shrinking. Her eyes widened, a strange light flashing within them. It was as if her body recognized his blood as an answer, not an enemy. The soldier gave a faint smile, though his face was pale. "You see it now," he whispered, his voice broken but steady. The queen growled, shaking her head. "This is impossible. Your blood is nothing. You are nothing." But her voice did not carry the same strength as before. It carried doubt, and doubt was a wound far deeper than claws could make. She remembered the wars, the endless battles, her people's victories. She remembered human soldiers falling one by one. But none of that mattered now, because here, in the cold silence of the ruins, one dying human had forced her to depend on him. Her pride screamed against it. Yet her body did not care about pride, it only cared about survival. The human coughed, blood staining his lips. His breathing was slow, but his eyes held a strange fire. "Maybe you don't understand now, but something is changing," he whispered. His words struck her like blades. Something was changing, not just in her body, but in the space between them. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "What are you? Human. Why does your blood fight the poison?" He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering the little strength he had left. "Humans adapt," he said softly. "We change, we survive. Maybe my blood remembers battles your kind has never seen." The queen hissed, her chest tightening with both anger and confusion. She wanted to deny it, but she could not. Every drop of his blood that touched her wounds fought against the poison. It was real, undeniable. Her survival was now tied to the very creature she had sworn to destroy. The air around them grew colder, the wind carrying whispers of other hunters moving through the ruins. Enemies might be near, her warriors or his, but she could not move yet. Her body was still weak, her mind torn. The human tilted his head, eyes still calm. "You're not used to needing anyone, are you?" She bared her teeth. "I need nothing. I need no one." Yet even as she said it, her claws trembled, and she knew the lie in her own voice. The strange reaction was more than blood. It was a bond neither of them had chosen. Each heartbeat pulled them deeper into a fate neither had wanted. The queen looked at him again, truly looked, and for the first time saw not just a human, but a being who carried something greater than weakness. A secret weapon that even he did not fully understand. Her chest burned with pride and rage, but her body whispered the truth. Without him, she would die. With him, she might live. That choice was heavier than any war she had ever fought. The queen stood, her claws flexing, her breath heavy. She looked down at the soldier, who lay silent now, half conscious. She wanted to crush him, to end this bond, to cut herself free from weakness. But her legs refused, her hands froze. Instead, she dragged him to shelter beneath a fallen wall, her claws leaving red trails on the stones. She told herself it was not mercy, only necessity. But deep inside, she felt the truth. His blood was saving her, and that truth would haunt her. As the night deepened, her body still fought the poison. But each time her strength faltered, she remembered his words. Maybe my blood can save you. And now she knew it already had. The ruins lay silent, but in that silence a strange alliance had begun. Not of trust, not of friendship, not yet, but of survival. And survival was stronger than any oath of war. A redoutable alliance. The ruins whispered with the cold wind, carrying ash and dust across the broken stones. The queen sat with her back against a shattered wall, her body trembling, her breath uneven. Her pride told her to rise, to walk away, to leave the bleeding human where he lay. But her body refused. The poison inside her still burned, slowed only by the strange touch of his blood. The soldier lay nearby, his face pale, his breathing weak. Every rise and fall of his chest seemed uncertain, as if each breath might be his last. Yet when his eyes opened, even half closed with exhaustion, they still carried that same calm light. He whispered, voice rough and broken, "You need me, don't you?" Her claws dug into the stone at her side, anger flaring at his words. "I need no one, human. I am queen of my kind. I stand alone," she snarled. But even as she spoke, her body shook with weakness, and the truth pressed hard against her words. Without him, her life would slip away before dawn. The human coughed, blood staining his lips, but his faint smile remained. "You can lie to yourself, but not to your veins," he said softly. His words struck her deeper than any blade. She hated his calmness, hated that even as he bled and broke, he spoke with a strange power she could not silence. She turned her face away, her eyes burning with both fury and shame. Her people would never forgive this. To rely on a human was the greatest dishonor, worse than death. But what use was honor if it ended with her body lifeless in the dust? Survival demanded a price, and tonight the price was pride. She moved closer to him, her claws scraping lightly against the stone. The human did not flinch, even though her shadow fell over him like death itself. Instead, he whispered, "If you want to live, we move together." Her chest tightened, her pride fought to reject him, but her body already knew it was true. She hissed, "If I keep you alive, it is only so your blood can keep me alive." Her voice was sharp, her pride unbroken, but her heart beat faster at the words. The soldier closed his eyes, nodding faintly. "Call it what you want, as long as we both keep breathing." For the first time, the queen touched his wound, not to harm but to stop the bleeding. Her claws, once used to tear, now pressed gently against his side. Her movements were rough, but careful enough to keep him alive. The irony cut her deeper than any enemy blade. She was saving the human she had sworn to kill, and in return, she knew his blood was saving her. When she lifted him to his feet, his body sagged against hers. His weight slowed her steps, but his presence steadied her strength. Together, they stumbled through the ruins, one leaning on the other, enemies bound by necessity. The battlefield around them was silent, but danger still lurked in every shadow. Hunters roamed the night, searching for survivors, searching for prey. If either of their people found them like this, both would be slaughtered. One as a traitor, the other as a prisoner. They moved slowly, step by step, through broken walls and shattered steel. The queen's claws clenched, ready to strike at anything that moved. But the human's voice whispered from beside her, calm even in pain, "We'll make it, one step at a time." His words lit a strange fire in her chest, not of poison, not of rage, but something she could not yet name. The night deepened, the stars above sharp and cold. Her kind called those stars their ancestors. But tonight she felt their eyes heavy upon her. Would they see her as weak, walking side by side with a human, or would they see her as strong, choosing life even when pride demanded death? At last they reached the shelter of a fallen tower, its walls broken but enough to hide them from watchful eyes. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, but safer than the open ruins. She lowered him against the wall, her claws leaving red streaks on the ground. The human sighed, his body sinking with exhaustion. "See," he whispered, "we move together." The queen looked at him, her eyes hard, her chest tight. Her voice came low, almost a growl. "Do not think this makes us allies. Human, I only carry you because your blood carries me." But even as she spoke, the words tasted false. Because deep inside, she already knew the truth. His blood was not the only reason she had not left him behind. The silence of the ruined tower wrapped around them, broken only by their breathing. The queen turned her gaze to the stars beyond the broken roof, her claws resting against the stones. She had made her choice. She would not let him die, not yet. Their alliance was reluctant, filled with hate, filled with need. But it was an alliance all the same. And as the night stretched on, both of them knew survival had bound them together, and nothing would break that bond before dawn. The journey through ruins. The ruins stretched for miles, broken towers leaning like the bones of giants. Fires burned far away, small flickers against the endless dark. The queen moved slowly, her body still heavy with poison, though the human's blood kept her alive. Beside her, the soldier limped forward, leaning against her shoulder, his strength fading with every step. They were two enemies bound together, walking through the wreckage of war. Each step carried danger, each shadow whispered of hunters waiting. The night air was sharp and cold, carrying the cries of distant creatures. The queen's claws flexed, ready to strike if anything approached. But her mind was divided, half on the shadows, half on the human beside her. He moved slower than she wanted, weaker than she liked. Every few steps he coughed, his breath shallow, his blood leaving faint marks on the stone. She hated how fragile he seemed, yet hated even more the thought of him collapsing. Because if he fell, she would fall soon after. Her survival was tied to him like a chain. The soldier's voice broke the silence, soft but steady. "Your people hunt at night, don't they?" She glanced at him, her eyes narrow. "So do yours." He gave a faint smile through the pain. "Then both of us should be dead already." Her chest tightened, though she hid it behind a cold stare. His words were true. By now, either of their armies should have found them. But the ruins were strangely empty, as if fate itself was giving them this path. They passed through a fallen bridge, the stones cracked and sharp. The human stumbled, nearly falling, and the queen caught him with her claws. Her grip was rough, her strength harsh, but she held him steady. He looked at her, breathless, and whispered, "Strange, isn't it, you saving me?" She growled, shoving him forward. "Do not mistake this for kindness, human. I only keep alive what keeps me alive." Yet deep inside, the words cut against her truth. If it was only survival, why had she slowed her steps to match his? Why had she lifted him when he fell, when she could have left him for the scavengers? Her pride gave no answer, and that silence was heavier than any blade. The ruins grew darker as they entered a shattered district of the old city. Tall metal spires leaned broken against each other. Wires hung like webs. Strange alien creatures moved between the rubble, glowing eyes watching from the shadows. The queen bared her teeth, ready to strike, but the soldier lifted a weak hand. "Not yet," he whispered. "They only hunt the dying." She froze, her eyes locked on the creatures. Small, twisted beasts, born from war and ruin, circling them like wolves. They smelled the human's blood, their hunger sharp in the air. The queen hissed low, "Then they will learn I am no dying prey." Her claws slashed out, striking the nearest beast, tearing it apart. The others shrieked, their glowing eyes flashing with fury. The soldier staggered to the wall, pressing his back against the stone, watching as she fought. Her movements were fierce, but slower than before, the poison still weighing her down. One beast leapt at her side, but before her claws reached it, a single shot cracked through the dark. The human had raised his broken weapon, firing the last round into the creature's skull. The queen turned, her eyes wide for a moment. The soldier lowered the empty weapon, his breath ragged. "Told you, not dead yet." For the first time, her lips curled into something that was almost a smile, though it vanished quickly. She dragged him forward again, the path behind them now littered with broken beasts. As they walked deeper into the ruins, the silence between them grew heavier. It was not the silence of enemies, but the silence of two lives balanced on the same thread. The queen's mind burned with questions she refused to ask. Why did his blood fight the poison? Why did he still walk when any other human would have fallen? Why did she, queen of her kind, feel her strength rise when he stood beside her? The soldier broke the silence again, his voice weak but steady. "You know, maybe this is what they feared." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "That one day, human and alien would stop killing long enough to realize we're stronger together," he said, coughing softly. She snarled, "Stronger with you, human, is weakness." But the words felt hollow, even to her. The night pressed on, the ruins endless, the dangers constant. Yet they moved forward, step by step, one leaning on the other. Enemies no longer, not yet allies, something stranger, something neither of them could name. And as the stars watched coldly above, the queen realized a truth that made her heart tremble. She was no longer walking to save only herself. She was walking to keep him alive too. The choice in the storm. The night sky split open with thunder. Clouds gathered like dark mountains above the ruins. The air grew heavy, charged with the kind of storm that could strip skin from bone. The queen lifted her head, tasting the electric bite in the air, knowing the storm was coming fast. She dragged the human forward, his steps weaker than ever. His body leaned heavier on her side, his breath shallow, his blood leaving a thin trail behind them. The poison inside her still burned, though slower than before, but the weight of his weakness pressed against her mind. If he fell now, she knew he would not rise again. The storm struck, rain crashing down like knives. Winds howled through the broken towers, tearing at them as if the ruins themselves wanted them gone. Lightning lit the world in sharp flashes, showing every broken wall, every shadowed beast lurking in the distance. The queen hissed against the rain, pulling him beneath the broken shell of a collapsed building. The roof above shook with the storm's fury, but it gave them shelter for now. The human collapsed to the ground, coughing violently, his lips stained red. His eyes fluttered open, trying to focus on her. The queen crouched beside him, her claws digging into the stone, her chest burning with something worse than poison. Fear, not fear of death, but fear that he would not see the dawn. She had carried him through the ruins, through beasts and shadows. But here, under the storm, his strength had reached its end. He whispered, voice breaking, "Leave me, you'll move faster without me." Her eyes blazed, her claws striking the ground beside his head. "Silence, human, I do not take orders from the dying." But inside, her pride crumbled. He was right. She could leave him, she could run into the storm, try to find safety alone. Yet the thought stabbed deeper than any wound. If she left him, the poison would finish her before the storm ended. If she stayed, she risked her people finding her with him. Either choice carried death, but one choice carried something heavier than death. The human smiled faintly, even as pain shook his body. "You're afraid, aren't you?" he whispered. The queen growled, "I fear nothing." But her voice trembled, and he saw it. "You're afraid of losing me," he said softly. The words struck her like lightning. Her chest tightened, her breath caught. For a heartbeat, she wanted to kill him, to silence the truth he had spoken. But she could not, because his words were not weakness. They were the truth she had been running from. She pressed her claws against his wounds, rough but steady. Her blood dripped into his cuts, alien and sharp, mixing with his human blood. A strange warmth spread between them, not enough to heal, but enough to keep life burning in him. She leaned close, her voice low. "You will not die, not while I still breathe." The storm roared louder, shaking the broken walls. Water poured in streams through the cracks, the world outside drowning in chaos. But inside the shelter, the queen bent over the soldier, her claws steady, her heart unsteady. She realized she had made her choice. She would not leave him, even if it cost her life. For the first time in her long reign, she shared her strength. Her alien energy, once kept only for her kind, now flowed into him. It burned in her veins, but as it touched his breathing steadied, his eyes opened wider. He looked at her, weak but alive, and whispered, why save me?" She did not answer at first, her pride refusing the words. But at last, through clenched teeth, she growled, "Because you saved me first." The soldier gave a faint laugh, soft but real. His voice was tired but steady. "Then maybe we both were wrong about each other." The queen looked at him in silence, her claws stained with both their blood, her chest heavy with feelings she had no name for. She hated this bond. She needed this bond. And in the storm, she knew one thing clearly. She would not let him go. Thunder rolled above them, shaking the world. The storm had trapped them, broken them, forced them together. But out of that storm, a new truth had formed. The queen was no longer fighting only for herself. She was fighting for him. And as the lightning lit the ruins, she realized with dread and wonder that the fate of both their kinds might begin here. Not with a blade, not with a war cry, but with one choice, her choice to save him. The bond beyond war. The storm faded slowly, leaving the ruins soaked and silent. Water dripped from broken walls. Lightning still flickered far away. The queen stood at the mouth of the shattered shelter, her claws resting against the stone, her body heavy but alive. Behind her, the human soldier stirred, his breath still shallow but stronger than before. She turned to him, her eyes sharp, yet different from the night before. They no longer looked at him as prey, nor as a burden. They looked at him as something she could not name, something both enemy and ally. His blood still marked her claws, her blood still marked his wounds. Together, they had crossed the storm, and together they had survived. The soldier forced himself upright, his body trembling, but his eyes steady. He looked at her with that same calmness that had haunted her since their first meeting. "You carried me through death," he whispered. "Now I carry you through choice." The queen tilted her head, her pride burning. "What choice?" He coughed, then gave a faint smile. "Whether you return to your people as their queen or walk another path with me." The words cut deep. Her people waited beyond the ruins, their wars still raging, their laws still unbroken. If they saw her with him, they would call her traitor, they would strike her down. But if she returned alone, her body might survive, yet her spirit would not. Because the truth was already inside her. Her life was tied to his. The human pressed his back to the wall, breathing slow. "You know it now," he said softly. "My blood saved you. Your strength saved me. We're bound whether we want it or not." The queen hissed. "Bound is not the same as trust." He nodded. "Maybe not, but it's more than war." Outside, the ruins stirred with movement. Figures appeared in the distance. Hunters, soldiers, both human and alien. The war was creeping closer. The silence of their storm-born bond was ending. The queen clenched her claws, her chest burning with the weight of choice. She could hand him over, call it victory, prove her loyalty to her people. She could leave him, let the ruins swallow his fragile body, or she could stand beside him, not as enemy, not as prey, but as something far more dangerous, as a protector. The human closed his eyes, whispering, "Whatever happens, I don't regret it." The queen stared at him, her heart twisting in ways she had never felt. For the first time, she spoke not as a queen, but as a voice unshackled. "You tore me open, human, but not with blades, not with blood. You tore me open with something far worse." He opened his eyes, his voice weak. "What's that?" She leaned closer, her voice low, trembling, with mercy. The footsteps outside grew louder, shadows moving closer. The queen rose to her full height, her claws flashing in the faint light. She stood before the human, her body a shield between him and the world. Her voice echoed against the broken walls, sharp and unyielding. "He is under my protection." The soldiers outside froze, their eyes wide at the sight, their queen standing guard over a human. Whispers spread through the ruins, disbelief and fury clashing like thunder. But the queen did not step aside. She had made her choice. The human, weak but alive, whispered from behind her, "You'll start a war bigger than this one." She glanced back at him, her eyes blazing. "Then let it begin with us." The storm clouds shifted above, revealing the stars once more. Cold and distant, yet watching, those stars would carry this story, whispered in shadows and carved into memory. The tale of an alien queen who tore a human with claws, only to find his blood saving her life. The tale of a soldier who bled for an enemy and found in her the will to survive. It was no longer just survival, no longer just need. It was something beyond war, beyond hate, beyond the chains of their people. It was a bond neither of them had chosen, but both of them carried. And in that bond, a new future waited. Not peace, not yet, but the first spark of it. The queen's claws dripped with both their blood, her stance unbroken. The human's eyes closed with exhaustion, but his lips curved into a faint smile. Together they faced the world. Enemies turned into something far more dangerous, into legend. And as the night settled over the ruins, one truth shone brighter than any star above. War had brought them together, but their blood had written something greater. Not the end of one life, but the beginning of two bound beyond war.